What is a church? A gathering of believers who raise a stone and wood roof shelter for those who come to glorify God. When a storm reduces the building to its foundation, it's the foundation of belief that brings the church back to life. I know these stories. When I was 10, the church my grandparents attended was destroyed by an EF5 tornado in Greensburg, Kansas, along with 95% of the town. The next Sunday, the congregation met in tents, undeterred by the wrath of Mother Nature. It happens all across America. When disaster strikes, Americans weather it with grace. September 28, 2022, Hurricane Ian strikes Florida, devastating Fort Myers and the nearby island of Sanibel. Winds hit 150 miles per hour at landfall and brought storm surge as high as 15 feet in some areas. That storm surge struck St. Michael and All Angels Episcopal Church.
Faith is believing in something that you can't see. And early on in this process, I couldn't imagine this being rebuilt the way it was.
On September 28, 2022, St. Michael and All Angels Episcopal Church on Sanibel was in the bullseye of Hurricane Ian, flooding. As a Category 4, Ian made landfall in southwest Florida, devastating the region with high winds and storm surge up to 15 feet. Along its path, at least 156 lives were lost, with over $112 billion in damages. Sanibel's causeway is still under repair after sections were washed away. The roads, once surrounded by tall piles of debris and muck, are now clean, and slowly the island's greenery and beauty are returning. Some businesses are back and operating while others are still shut down. And people are now enjoying the same Gulf of Mexico that recently submerged the island.
Sanibel Island was completely covered with seawater at varying depths. Where we are right here at St. Michael's, the water came up right around 5 feet in this sanctuary and in our other buildings.
Bill Van Oss is the rector of St. Michael and All Angels on Sanibel. 9 days after the storm, he had to come by boat to see the church with contractors.
To walk in and see it absolutely devastated was heartbreaking.
Repairs started February of 2023. We first met that September, a year after the storm, as work continued. Recovering took a village, including church members, contractors, volunteers, and a Fort Myers church that gave them a temporary place to call home.
It's going to be just fine because we are together. We met at Peace Lutheran Church and began putting the teams together that it was going to take to make the decisions to do this rebuilding.
Teams for fundraising, structural rebuilding, landscaping. Members Joanne Syverson and Linda Lensmeyer led a team replacing items lost to the storm.
I mean, it went from the furniture to the lighting to the trash cans, you know, everything that we had to get because we had nothing left. It was all gone.
Even things that we did save had to be refinished.
Both rode out the storm at their homes, this taken from Linda's house on the island.
Saw that body of water, the Gulf of Mexico, convert into the biggest, strongest, widest, deepest river we've ever seen, racing through our yard.
Hope we never have to live through it again.
But a great outcome, to really feel more resilient as a community.
Through it all, the church finally held service in their sanctuary last Christmas.
Now this is where their bell tower was before the storm. It was destroyed. Now it is the last major piece to the puzzle of their recovery. You can see they have it mapped out as to where it will go, and they're now waiting on its delivery.
Built from wood, it collapsed during the storm. This time, they're building it stronger with metal.
Many people who are not a part of this parish who have said, is the bell tower coming back? It's another sign of recovery.
Just as they look forward to hearing those bells, Easter is also anticipated.
It's new life, it's rebirth, it's resurrection, and that's what's happened to us. We have been reborn, and we have risen from the buildings have risen from the decimation and the damage that they experienced to be back and more beautiful than ever.
Would you say that might be part of your sermon?
It just might make its way in there. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some, the wounds are still fresh. The healing process, not yet begun. On December 9th of 2023, just before Christmas, tornadoes destroyed the Community Baptist Church in Nashville and the Mount Olive Church in nearby Clarksville. For these two communities, hope is the first stage of healing.
With the end of a cold, dark season, the promise of warmth, new life, and new beginnings. Something Pastor Vincent Johnson reminds himself of when sitting in his car in a parking lot of what once was one of his favorite places on earth.
I find peace because this is where I encountered God in a whole new way. A real encounter with a God that shelters and shields and protects. The path that we just took to get in the building is the path I took to get out the building once we got up from underneath the debris.
On December 9th of 2023, he was one of 40 people at Community Baptist Church in Nashville with nowhere to hide from a deadly storm.
We were all in the right place at the right time for God to do his best work. And I don't doubt that, because we're still here.
A powerful EF2 tornado leveled both church buildings, the sanctuary and the adjacent Life Center.
My legs were under this tree. The wall that was behind me was gone. The van had made its way on the inside of the sanctuary.
Could you hear anything? Could you see anything?
I heard a roar. But I also heard, not today. Because when I saw the building blew away, I just said, God, this is it. And I heard God speak to me and say, not today.
The colorful church pews where his congregation once knelt to worship, shredded in the force of that storm. Their beloved sanctuary, now an unrecognizable pile of bricks, wood, and metal that once framed a blessed place. But each one of the dozens of people who huddled together between those now collapsed walls praying were spared.
I've been granted a new lease on life. We all have, because other families lost lives. Babies were taken away. And so, God keeping us here, it's newfound purpose, and I'm trusting God for this entire journey.
46 miles away, the rebuilding of Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church is just beginning. The roof here ripped off in that same storm system. These tools, the first of many that will soon breathe new life and rebuild the walls that once surrounded a community of faith here in Clarksville, Tennessee.
It's messy. Yeah. They've had bulldozers in here.
This was a new home for Pastor David Allen, the building that once welcomed his Northern Tennessee congregation, built only 5 years ago.
Tornadoes are, they are something. It hits one house, skips completely over, destroys one thing, skips another, and you know, it's just heartbreaking to see the tragedy, the disaster.
You told me you were inside the building just 30 minutes before the tornado hit?
Yes, it was really close. 30 minutes after I left, the tornado hit the building.
Allen considers himself lucky, especially as he looks out to the community that has since surrounded him with strength and support when it too has lost so much. 4 people lost their lives, among them a 10-year-old boy.
It's just hard because we've always been the resource for the community, and now the resource needs a resource.
Now in the Easter season, both pastors can see the darkness of what once was a terrifying storm replaced by something much stronger.
It was heartbreaking, but the thing is, we have to realize that the church is the people. And so I say all the time that the church is well. The church is stronger than ever.
The strength lies in knowing that we're still together, and we're here, and we're resilient, and we're determined to remain a light in this community.
We will be back here, and we look forward to that resurrection of our building, restoration.
The promise of new life is why Americans go to church, and also to find comfort in the face of fire. That story, next. You would probably be surprised by how many churches are damaged each and every year and what goes into restoring them. But threats depend on the region. Tornadoes in the middle of the country, hurricanes in the south. But all churches face a threat from above in the form of lightning. It was a storm in June of 2023 that brought a devastating bolt from above to a church in Spencer, Massachusetts.
It's been roughly 10 months since a fire destroyed a 160-year-old church. Today, there's nothing left.
Be careful of the broken things, melted things.
It's a rainy, dreary day as Pastor Bruce McLeod shows us what's left of the first Congregational church in Spencer, Massachusetts.
These were the front steps, and the water was just coming like a river out of there.
As a dry storm moved through town, lightning struck, and shortly after, the fire alarm here went off.
The fire department was here, and they said, "Get out now."
A huge flash of blue light, and then the crack right along with it.
Robert Parsons, the chief of Spencer's fire department, explains a fire like this couldn't be stopped.
A church steeple is a lightning rod in itself, basically, being so high. We had at one point, I think, 6 ladder trucks working the fire, and it was just like we're spitting on it. There was no way of stopping it at all.
Firefighters needed so much water to put out this fire, they ended up draining the water in Spencer, and they had to tap into this meadow. How fast did this all happen?
So from the initial alarm from fire alarm activation to the building collapsing into a hole was roughly 20 minutes. It was gone.
Pastor McLeod says it's a blessing. No one was inside.
They had been here until about 1 o'clock on that day, and then had left, and about an hour later the lightning struck. So nobody was in the building.
It's led area fire departments to hold trainings at similar churches to prepare firefighters for a scene like this unfolding again.
We all took a good look around and realized this could happen in our town anytime. these steeples in these churches, they're very narrow, they're old wooden stairways, they're only as wide as one person.
And these old churches, made with wood and no fire stops, are something the region is known for.
New England is where America started. You know, the first settlers built these buildings, and a lot of them are still standing. So it's kind of our job to keep them standing and make sure that nothing ever happens.
There's no doubt the absence of this church is felt deeply in the community.
People were funerals there, weddings there, baptisms, first communions. There was so many people that had stories of what they had done or how that church had impacted their life.
You drive by, it's just an empty hole now. It's something you don't think of when you're driving down when it's there, but when it's not there, you definitely notice.
It held people's encounters with God, with the holy. And I think that's what people really have missed.
The parishioners now attend worship at another church about 15 minutes away.
The Leicester Church was the mother church to this congregation. It's sort of like God had an idea that we would need each other. I think there has been actually a sense of new life that comes from this. So it comes back to that sense of resurrection. And you have to go through the death in order to get to that place.
Still, Pastor McLeod is hopeful this church will make a comeback in some way.
We hope to be able to put something here and that there will be something, it won't be as grand, but that will be a symbol for the community as well.
He says it'll be on God's timing. In the meantime, they're doing what they can to serve the community through a little pantry for anyone to take what they need.
There's a strong sense that they have a mission to do in this community.
And this tight-knit community has an age-old tradition on Easter.
The tradition has been to have a sunrise service at a lake that's nearby here. You know, our conversation's making me think, you know what? We ought to have our sunrise service here.
We can look to the heavens to find comfort and sometimes great beauty. But the heavens can bring destruction and sometimes death. In December of 2021, entire blocks of Mayfield were reduced to rubble by an EF4 twister that carved out a path of 165 miles through Kentucky. More than 2 years later, the rebirth of Mayfield is still beginning.
I hung on to that shelf down there. I just hung on to the shelf. It just shifted the whole house. I mean, it may sound trite, but really you're just so thankful to be alive. It's a very terrifying experience. And we're so fortunate because right behind us were a bunch of apartments over there. And they were 3-story apartments, and you can tell that, I mean, they're gone. And several people died back there. And so we're fortunate. I mean, you know, I lost a lot of things that meant something to me, but we're alive.
Many of the people who live here in Mayfield wonder when all of this desolation will have a rebirth of its own. You know, it's been 2+ years since the tornado ravaged and killed so many here. And the process and the grief, the 5 stages, in fact, of what people are going through. Some of them want the past to make its way back into the new. Others want a brand new path forward for Mayfield. Walking the streets of Mayfield, you realize immediately the past 2 years in this Kentucky town has been strenuous.
I remember the day after and driving through downtown, certainly seeing our old church building in the state that it was. I was shocked, to say the least. Definitely have wave after wave of emotions, sadness that just came over me, thinking about the situation that we were in and how would we ever get out of it. But now to see things that are starting to come together and buildings going up, plans being made. There's more certainty, certainly now, as to the future of Mayfield than there was the day after that tornado came through.
The long track tornado that tore across the downtown leveled nearly every structure. Today, the debris fields are mostly removed.
Hope springs eternal, and that what we're going through now today is not the end story, that there's more to come.
There is a raw determination, a ground truth, led by faith and grit. These three church leaders are paving the way to a new Mayfield.
It's disheartening, it's devastating, it's destroying, but you've got to keep your face up and you've got to have hope and not give up.
Daily life in Mayfield and the surrounding area is forever changed. The faith-based community stand firmly on the front lines of guiding survivors.
We need to be outside the walls, sharing and experiencing what they're going through, but also kind of building them up. So what's their needs? What's their daily needs? And that's one thing we're focused on lately.
Fairy tales never start in the middle of the dark woods. They always, that's a period that you have to go through, but there is an ending.
It was this book.
Through the power of faith and perseverance, the raw reality of the catastrophic tornado on December 10th, 2021 will never be forgotten. Yet, in the days after the turmoil, the idea of a rebirth seemed out of reach. Today, hope runs through the streets here in Western Kentucky.
We're never going to get the town square back the way it was. We're never going to get the buildings back the way it was. My hope for Mayfield, though, is at the end of the day, whenever that occurs, we'll be stronger. We'll be stronger within our populace. We'll be stronger within our economy. We'll be able to tell the story to others. There is comeback after ashes. There are phoenixes that do rise, and that's what I hope for Mayfield. And we're already seeing it's happening. It's happening.
On this Easter weekend, I think about the beautiful buildings where Americans come to practice their faith. I think about the buildings lost. But mostly, I think about the congregations that build new structures to shelter from the storm. Those shelters are ever-changing, adapting to the weather. But what will never change are the people who meet at any house to pray, to find fellowship, and new life